this Sunday, the 15th of February. FA Cup weekend has obviously gone by, and we are not in it. So it's a quiet weekend for United fans this weekend. So look, I hope we're all doing extremely well this evening. Work day tomorrow, obviously. But look, get into this amazing community. This is the best community on this platform, hands down, without a doubt. And it's all thanks to you guys as well. So look, tonight this is your Sunday show. A little bit different. I'm in a little different room tonight as well. Just doing something a little bit different tonight, just because half term is always just a bit weird. So it just means I've got to do things as and when I can. Nikarutsu legend is already in the chat. Good evening, JB. Hope you are well, mate. I'm not doing too badly. Hope you are doing extremely well as well. So let's get into this amazing community. The only thing we do ask is be respectful to the community. Niche Fan is in the house. Legend, of course. Niche Fan is an absolute legend of the channel, as is Nikarutsu as well. So look, get into this amazing community. Dino is in the house, so absolute legend. Yeah, look, guys, the shows have been a bit sparse, really, because, as I say, I'm not going to spam you guys with a bunch of crap. I'd rather just bring it all together into the one show. And I think the evening shows work better, because it just means that, you know, we can talk about the stuff, but also this is your show, and you can get in your comments of things that you've seen, and just get in there with that as well. So, as I say, get into this amazing community. Be respectful to the community. Be respectful to yourselves. Be respectful to me. Otherwise, the banhammer comes out. We don't like doing it, but we absolutely will. So look, we don't mind banter. Just be respectful. Scott is in the house as well. Another legend of the chat as well. So second thing to say is, look, I'm not a dictator of this chat. I do read out your chats, your comments. So if you think you're going to put stuff in the community chat and I don't read it, I will read it within reason. Of course, yeah, but Scott does enjoy it. Scott does enjoy bringing up the banhammer. It's power. It's power, guys. So look, let me know how we're all doing tonight. Let me know how your weekend has been. Weekend without football, the very reason why we're here on this channel. Arsenal won tonight. I am getting a little bit concerned. I'm getting a little bit concerned that Arsenal are gonna win some trophies this season. And look, you know, it's not a huge deal, but I have sort of made a bet that if Arsenal do the treble, then I've got to go and do some stuff, which I don't want to do. So look, I don't think they are, but like, Arsenal are going good guns as well. So Mansfield as well did really well this weekend. I said, JB, did you watch the Villa Newcastle game? If so, does it not show how heavily refs are on VAR? Some shocking decisions missed. And Dino, I did watch the game, and I agree with you. That's one of the things actually that went through my mind, is a bit like, it's almost a bit like when you get introduced to a piece of tech and the referees have become fucking lazy. The linesman, I mean, that Adam Partridge says, big up, mate. I'm new to you. I'm a Man United fan too. Adam, welcome to the channel, buddy. I'm going to say this is the best channel on this platform, hands down, Adam. And welcome to the chat. Look, this is your show for people like Adam who've never been here before. Get into the chat. If you make a comment, that I respect your opinions. If I do come back on something, it's not because I'm disrespecting the opinion. It's more so because you've sparked the conversation, and this is what the channel's about. It's about different opinions, and unless you insult me, just get in your opinions. Dino says, how did not just the ref but the linesman miss? Look, I don't know now how, you know, we've got a situation now, as you said, Dan, look, this is your show tonight. We can talk about whatever you got. I've got some stuff to talk about as well. But Dino's right. It was really lazy. It's really lazy. And Nikarutsu, I think you're right tonight. When you look at VAR, the linesman was almost a bit like he's forgotten how to do his job. And the fact the VAR wasn't there as well, it was ridiculous. So, and as you say, we've got referees and linesmen that are now lazy and can't do their job. And you've got VAR and the people that use VAR, most of the time, they are so inconsistent. So, Mike said, hi from Hungary, we're famous player. Zabozlai. Look, Mike, don't apologise, mate. Welcome from Hungary. We don't mind different fans on here as well. Look, Zabozlai is an absolute banger of a player. I wished. So, Ranić, when he was here, mentioned Zabozlai as well, by the way. So, Zabozlai for me, I mean, what a player. Absolutely fantastic player. Really like him. I wish we'd assigned him. Ali says, how are you, mate? I'm doing extremely well, buddy, and hope you're doing well as well. So look, get into it tonight. Get into your comments, what you've seen on the weekend, and we'll go through it. So one of the things I wanted to go through first of all, really, Nico says, both are as bad as each other. Both are scared to make a decision in case they get slaughtered. Look, look, mate. Look, mate. You've got to go for that comment, mate. Look, you got to go. You got to go. You can't say those kind of things on here, mate. This is the wrong channel for that. Any remarks like that, and you go. So, as a boss, Liverpool's only performer this season. It's a Bozlar for me. I think he's fantastic. I really like him. What do you think about Galatasaray Juventus match in the Champions League? Billy says United are shit. United are shit, says Billy. Look, mate, it's banter. You've just been timed out, mate. Well, what do I think about it? I think it's going to be a close game. I think it depends if Galatasaray are at home. Grace is in the house, a legend as well. Everyone give it up for Grace. Maximum respect for Grace as well. Grace is in the house. Grace keeps us in complete check as well. So Grace, legend. So I wanted to start off tonight really with some of the things that I've seen. So whilst I've been not active through the day, I have been looking at stuff and reading some stuff, and some of the stuff that I've seen today. Look, you give me your thoughts and opinions on this, and I'm not going to name names today. Look, I'm not going to name names, and one of the things about doing this is that sometimes you do come across stuff. And you do get told stuff and you come across stuff, right? And one of the things that I saw today was just absolutely ridiculous. So apparently United, and again, if you see this across YouTube, that I think people need to call this out. Now, Mason Mount. So I've seen it today, bits and bobs. That United are going to be selling Mason Mount. So Grace says Mount will be a squad player, a rotational player till his contract ends. And Grace, spoiler alert, Grace, you pretty much spoiled it. Thank you. No. You're right, Grace. I wanted to go through some of the stats, some of the amortization, and basically. You're right, Grace. I wanted to go a little bit more involved in that tonight because I would love to name names, but I'm not going to tonight. But the ridiculous notion that Mason Mount is going to be sold. I just tonight I find it absolutely ridiculous. 154 for nice hair. Exactly. So look, let's get through it. So Mason Mount, let's play devil's advocate here for a second. So let's just imagine that United are going to try to sell Mount. Now, if Mason Mount had have been playing all season, now I've started to look at, so what is Mount? What's his value at? A packet of crisps. I think his market value is around £25 million. 25 million pounds. But one of the most ridiculous things that I've seen, and I don't know where these stats are. So apparently, Mason Mount this season, as his injuries, he's only had 3 this season. Now I've counted at least 5. Now, Mason Mount has got 2.5 years on his deal, so his book value is in and around 28 million pounds. His book value at the end of the season will be 22 million. His book value at the moment is 28. Mason Mount this season apparently has had 3 injuries, which is a load of shit because he has had at least 5 or 6. Apparently, he's only missed 6 games, which again is a load of crap. Nicky T says, I like Mason Mount. We should keep him. Callum says, hi, United are shit. United are shit, man. Lee, mate. Lee, you're gonna get you're gonna get banned, buddy. So Nicky, welcome to the chat. Why Odegaard, and I will come on to that as well because there's another fantasy story about players. Again, look, for me, this is not a case of, and I'm gonna prefix this whole chat here with, this is not a vendetta against the player. I really like a Mason Mount. Like, I really I like him. I think as a 10 in that position, I think if and when he was fit, I think he's a fantastic player. But I think, Nicky, we're going to be forced into keeping a Mason Mount. Now, the problem here for me is that Mason Mount has got the number 7 shirt. Now, whoever's decision that was, look, with hindsight, should he have gotten the number 7 shirt? I would have said no, but he has. Mason Mount is also, if we look at his injuries, and look, I'm just going to go through this list. So look, Mason Mount is 27. He's just turned 27 as well. So look, time was on his side. In and around gets paid about 250,000. So it's quoted with the bonuses, etc. It's in and around 175 to 250,000 pounds. He's got 2 years left on his deal, as Grace has said in the chat. At the moment, his book value is 28. In the summer, it will be 22 million. Now, if we start to go through the injuries of Mason Mount, look, this season, if you look on an official site, these injuries, these are skewed. Now, look, I am all for skewing the injuries this season on the basis that if there's an opportunity to break even on a Mason Mount, I would sell him. I just don't see the value right now. Well, we've got a player who has, in my view, had at least 5 to 7 injuries this season. He's not going to get into the side. Now, many of you guys want Carrick, right? No problem with that. And this is not a show where we're going to talk about whether we want him or not. Carrick only really plays with 110. you could argue possibly two. If Carrick gets this job as many people want him to do, there's no place for Mason Mount. Mason Mount is injury. Mason Mount is not going to get into this team. Now, if we look at injury-wise this season, as I've said, I think he's had at least 5 to 7. Last season, he had 2, but he missed 23 games. The season before, he had another 2, and he was out for 26 games. So in the last 3 seasons, Mason Mount has missed, I'm going to approximate this as about 60 to 70 games. Look, those are not good numbers. I've been saying this since the very start of the season. I really like a Mason Mount. I think he's a fantastic player, but you can't rely on a Mason Mount. And now the fact that Amarin has gone, again, this is not a attack on anybody tonight. The reality of this is, and the reason why I bring this up is because you've got people out there putting it out there that INEOS are going to sell a Mason Mount. INEOS is going to sell him. Who are they going to sell him to? Like, who is going to buy Mason Mount? Like, that is my question tonight. Now, look, I'm not opposed to keeping him because we've got to. If we can get a Mason Mount fit and Mason Mount was playing, I would sell Mason Mount. Now, if I went back to the start of the season, there are 2 things that I said. One of them that I will apologise for, and I can just say that I got that wrong. So I said at the very start of the season that a Butcher, I didn't think the Butcher would come back, and I said if we could get him playing, if we could get him playing, then I would probably look to sell him because I don't think that he could come back. Now, that was based on Mason Mount. That was based on, the fact that we've been burnt. I was wrong on that one. 100% wrong. Look, at this point in time, I wouldn't sell him. I know he's back fit. I wouldn't sell him. That's a good example of where I was wrong. That was an example where I was absolutely wrong. Now, Mason Mount, sadly, is not the same. Mason Mount is a younger guy. Mason Mount, I wish he was fit. I think Mason Mount is going to be here until the end of his contract. And I think Mason Mount is going to go on a free. And when Mason Mount goes on a free, he's going to be 29 years old. He's going to be 20. He's just turned 27 this season. He's going to be 28 next season. And then when his contract ends, he's going to be 29. At 29 years old, Mason Mount could pretty much be ended. It is ridiculous. I feel so sorry for the kid. I feel so badly for a Mason Mount. That the situation that he finds himself in, and look, when I'm talking about this, I don't take any happiness. I don't take any pride. I don't take any happiness from being right at the start of the season to say that this player has a career-threatening injury that can only be fixed if he has an operation. And I don't know if he's going to be able to have it. Nobody knows if that's something that is going to fix it. So I think, sadly, for us in terms of what we're trying to do, or what we're trying to do as a football team, Mason Mount is going to be one of those historic players that we signed that is going to be part of the old regime. And it is, when you think about it, when you think about this, when Mason Mount contract ends, he's going to be 29 years old. And if these injuries continue, Mason Mount until he's 29 years old, he's going to be on the scrap heap. And I hope that he can fix that. But as of now, it doesn't look good. And look, I'll get through the comments, and then I should tell you for why, categorically, why INEOS will not sell Mason Mount right this second. Nick says, add a packet of scampi fries and a pint of Guinness to sweeten the deal for the buy. Callum says, hi, hello, Callum. Hasn't performed. Injuries haven't helped, but he has been average to poor. If we get 22 mil, I'd take it. 2 years left on his contract. He can't stay fit for 1 game a week. Exactly. Callum says we're 4th. That's good. And look, guys, get in your comments tonight. I will go through what I wanted to talk about, but we can talk about different things tonight. And look, we are 4th. It is good. It is good. Sir Grace says we'll win in the league. I'm concerned about De Ligt. Hope he gets better. That's another concern as well. Alex says, greetings from Russia, from cold Russia. Greetings, Alex. Mount, the best number 7. 7 shirts should only be reserved for legends. I can't even do that. Paul James Owen says, we can all have our fantasy team, but our biggest problem is the ownership. People can't forget the main problem just because of a few good results. Keep protesting. And exactly that. Exactly that. And Paul, I am going to go into a little bit of a rant in a second as well, because there is a reason, and Paul, you're right. It is a fantasy. We all know, and I've done 2 shows over the last 2 days going over the damage. Not only are we talking about a club that can't sell these type of players, we've now got an additional owner who's basically trying to sabotage and bury the club by alienating 3/4 of the fan base. It is ridiculous. Lacey, better than that. I'm still sitting on the fence with Carrick, says Nicky T. Agreed. And look, I will mention Carrick as well. We can get on to Carrick as well. I'm still on the fence. Hi, come on, United, says Derek. Sitting on the fence must hurt. It really does. Can Mount be sold though, says Hedgie? No. Mason Mount cannot be sold, and I will get on to that as well. Withcut says, JB, I went to Arsenal today. The full club went undercover and told them you seen United. Now F off home. With my Arsenal scoff on Mount, a good sub player. I think Mount will head off to an Italian team. There's a reason Arteta hooks him off early every single game. Odegaard is definitely not the answer. Must be the most sub captain ever. And I wanna go through that as well. Spoiler alert as well. He is injury prone as well, by the way. I will go through that as well. Because Paul, I think it's fucking fantasy. He for me is not the answer. Odegaard for me is not the answer, and is the antithesis of a player that I want to stay away from, because I think if we did an Odegaard, he'd be very, very pricey, and he's very, very injury prone as well. JB Wisher, Kevin players would you like to see next season? I would like to see Lacey play more. I really want a Lacey to come through more. I want Obi to come through. I think Obi's starting to get into his stride a bit now. Who else? So I'd like to see Lacey, JJ, and Obi. I think those are the ones I'd like to come through as well. Amas, I'd like to see Amas as well. Hopefully he can get that experience. We should be looking at Alisson from Napoli. What have we got? Sky's in the house. James Lynch says it's time to oil up. Well, what you do, James, in the privacy of your own home, my friend, is up to you. I think letting McTominay go was one of United's biggest mistakes. I think with the annals of time, I think, yes. I think the majority of this fan base, I don't, I I think McTominay is the epitome of that's what happens when you don't play a player or you don't find the right position for a player. I actually think, and again, this is not a vendetta. I think that Mason Mount in 210s works better because I don't think McTominay is an 8. I think McTominay is more of a number 10. I think McTominay is a box player in terms of I think he's that attacking box player. I'd argue that you could play with 2 number 10s. You could play a Mainu as an 8. He is more of a 10 though. Bruno has 110. McTominay as the other 10, and you get a McTominay into that box. I just don't think as a fan base we understood what it was that we had. And I think McTominay was played out of position. It is. Nicky T says, yes, very sad for Mount. We need to tighten up and show some spine. Casemiro helps us do it. Alex Ferguson, MUFC, Ukraine, Kiev. Why is it sad he's being paid loads of money to dance in a gym? And look, I'm not against that opinion. I'm one of the things I am trying to do now. Look, I've been accused of being a miserable bastard, right? I can be. Now, I do agree with that comment to a point. Like, the reason why I think it's sad, right? Now, the reason why I think it's sad is because it's not nice to see a young man not doing what he wants to do, right? I'll always think that's sad, right? No matter what job that somebody does, I think it's always sad when that person trains hard or trains hard to get there, right? And then doesn't do the job that they want to do. It is sad because he's a young guy. But Meister, well, I do agree with you. Like, it's not like Mason Mount is, whilst he's not playing, he is a millionaire. He's getting paid, what, let's just say 200k to do nothing. He's wearing the number 7 shirt and gets paid 200k a week. So whilst I do feel sorry for Mason Mount, I think Meister is spot on. And look, this is what I wanted to kind of bring into the last bit with a Mason Mount is this. Any club, any serious club worth its salt would look to move a Mason Mount on. There is going to be some residual value there. Now, if you look at a Calvert-Lewin, right, for Leeds, injury prone, out for season after season. You look at him this season. Now, there is going to, and I think he went on free, didn't he? But there is going to be some value to Mason Mount. But this club, it is a fantasy. So for others to suggest, for other channels to suggest that INEOS are going to sell Mason Mount is a fantasy. And it's a fantasy because for the reasons that Sir Jim and this club have sacked people left, right and centre to raise some money. They stopped charity amounts of 40,000 because, again, they wanted to save cash. We're about to lose anywhere between conservative 110 million to 160 million pounds. There is no way, that INEOS are going to sell this player and make a loss, because as of now, the book value is going to be 22. Who's going to buy Mason Mount for that price? Would he be worth a punt? Yes, but it's the wages as well. When you factor in, and this is what I call bullshit. I call bullshit on some of these channels who spin absolute bullshit. I do wonder sometimes. I do wonder channels of people who go to games, and I really wonder about their money math. I wonder about, do they really understand the financial issues that we've got at this club? Do they do it for clicks? Because if you follow the trial, if you follow this club, an ambitious club would take a hit. I think you could sell Mason Mount between 10 to 15 million pounds. I reckon if you said to an Italian club, look, we will pay off the rest of his wage, you give us 12.5 million pounds, that's roughly half of his cost. It's going to cost you that. Any decent club would go, do you know what? We don't want to take a hit, or maybe you send him out on loan, but somebody for that price would take a punt on him. But we're not going to do that. It doesn't make sense why this club is scrounging around down the back of a sofa. Factually, we're going to lose at least 100 million pounds this season, and that's just from not having the home games. That's the shirt sleeve sponsor that we're struggling to get. That is the kit sponsor that we're struggling to get. That is the results. We've fallen down the cash list. We were always in the top 5, the top 3, and now we're down to 8. This club is not going to sell Mount. So, and tonight is the fact that we are discussing this tonight, and Meister is right. The fact that we're in a position whereby we're paying an injury-prone player who's got the number 7 shirt tonight, who gets paid 200k a week. It's money down the drain. And look, I know you've got to pay these players, but we're paying him what, 8 million pounds a year or whatever it is. What is it? It's 2, 4, 6, 8. Yeah, about 9.6 million pounds. You're wasting 9.6 million pounds on a player in addition to his fee, by the way. So we've wasted on Mason Mount on the length of the contract. You're talking the best part of 40 million and 55 million. So on Mason Mount as a total investment, 55 million pounds plus 9.6 over 5 years. It's about 40, it's about 40, 45. No, it's about 44.5 million. So you're going to have wasted the best part of 100 million pounds investment on a Mason Mount. And we wonder why we've got no money. Now, people will say on Mount, well, how did we know? It was well known in around that Mason Mount had this long-standing issue, and yet we still decided to invest 100 million pounds, which is what is going to be over 5 years. And we wonder why, we struggle. You can put him into the Sancho, and I'm not saying I'm putting him into the Sancho thing because he's a bad player. He's not an issue. You've got to put him into the Sancho mode. Again, Sancho was, again, he got paid what 200k a week. What did we pay for him? 70 million. And again, that's 110 investments, 200 million pounds investment on 2 players. and pretty much Mason Mount's going to walk out the door for a fuck all. Sancho is leaving this summer, a waste of 110 million pounds, and people think that we're going to sell a Mason Mount. Ridiculous. Let's get through this. I want to be Spider-Man. If I get 23, I'm playing a Hogwarts. Don is in the house. Mount is injury prone. When Bruno was injured, we needed him to step up and fill in the void. He couldn't. That's why Dalot is a great utility player, always available. And Don, do you know what, mate? Look, this season, I think if we want to progress forward, right, those sorts of players who are available, like Luke Shaw this season, right? You know my feelings on a Luke Shaw, right? But this season, you know, he's the only left back that we've got, and he's been available. You know, I think he's a limited player, but you know, this season, if we finish fourth, those players have to take. You know, we've got to thank these players. And Mason Mount, and Don, you're 100% right. You know, Mason Mount, whilst we've got players like a Mason Mount, we do have these injury-prone players like a Luke Shaw who's actually stepped up this season. So, Don, I think you make a good point, buddy. So, you're right, mate. You're right. Mount needs to be replaced. He should be sold. And Don, for the reasons I'm explaining, I don't see how he gets sold. You know, any well-run club with cash would take a hit. You know, would take a hit on him. I just don't see how. Look, unless they can do an insurance job, and he can't play anymore. You know, Ray says Goldbridge showing his true colours by saying the FA Cup is dead. Fair enough. Not a lot of people rate that the FA Cup, but no means is it dead. It exists for a reason. Small look. Again, I'm not going to comment on certain people because it's like people are entitled, Ray, to have their view. The FA Cup for me will never be dead. You know, I don't know what he means by being dead. But historically, look, you know, I know Premier League teams have all gone through pretty much into a round 5, right? But the FA Cup is not dead. You know, historically, majority of the time, Premier League teams get to the final. In the last couple of years, I can only really think of Wigan, who won it. You know, Crystal Palace won it, but Crystal Palace are a you know, a good team. Cardiff, when Cardiff went to the final, Wigan went to the final and won it. Portsmouth, but Portsmouth at the time were a top team as well. But again, you know, look, you've got to be careful who you watch, right? But look, people are going to have their opinion. My opinion is this: the FA Cup is not dead. And actually, I shall tell you for why, in my humble view, that the FA Cup isn't dead, right? So I know from a perspective that Premier League teams have all got through, right? But even if that is the case, I think football is catching up, right? If you look at Crystal Palace, and you know, maybe it is dead in some eyes, but if we can get at least Crystal Palaces to win an FA Cup and Aston Villa to win an FA Cup, you know, a Burnley to win an FA, you know, as long as we get those, but the FA Cup is not dead. I think that's a very, very extreme view. top teams have pretty much always won an FA Cup. I've always done it. So, look, people talk shit. It is what it is. Let's go through it. Let's go through your chats. United are shit. Thanks, mate. Appreciate it. Look, mate, I would appreciate better banter than that. So let's have a little look. Why is England so shit at football? Well, they're not, are they? I mean, I don't support England, by the way. I've got an appreciation for England. I'm Welsh, so I've got an appreciation for England. But even I, with my Welsh views, have to say that England are not shit. They're just not. Let's have a little look. Amas, Fredrickson, Kone, Thwaites, Vitek, Lacey, Biancheri. I like him. He's gone on loan as well. How can we fix England's football team? I don't understand what you mean by fixed. I mean, England have been to semi-finals and a final. I don't get what you mean. Look, I'm not English, right? But England just need to get the mix right. I think that is the only thing that England need to do is get the mix right. What we're saying. McTominay is the typical Thomas Muller. I agree, Grace. I really do agree with you on that one. JB, miserable, no way. Thanks, Grace. Spain smashed England. Great. Well done. Well done. Noe says the quad is on. Look, Noe, I mean, it would be I don't even know, mate. Arsenal are a good team. Now, can you imagine, right, not winning a league for 22 years, right? Never winning the Champions League, and then in one season you do the quad. Can you? If I like Arsenal fans, I do. AFTV, I don't. Certain people on that, I just think they're just mad. If Arsenal won the quad, they would be unfucking bearable. But look, Arsenal are in it to win it. Let's see what they can do. Big up JB says Danny is a legend. Who was that football player that was always injured and his daughter was on Love Island? He spent his career on the bench. I don't know. Michael Owen, was it? Bust out the bangers and mash, bruv. Let's get this kick off. Statuda says hi, hello. A new room says, John, it is for tonight. It is for tonight. It's half term. I've got to stream wherever I can. This is not permanent. This is just basically this is just for tonight. Malacia, Mason Mount out. INEOS to leave. I wouldn't put it past it. As a Chelsea fan, suck it up. Roberto says hi. Stuart says, does anyone else think that there should be an injury clause in players' contracts? I do agree. I think there's insurance on players. The only problem, Stuart, for me would be trying to get a player to sign that. If you're United and you're trying to get a player to sign an injury clause, I think you would find it very, very difficult. I think you find it very, very, very difficult for players to sign. I don't disagree with you. I don't. I just think it'd be very, very difficult to get players to sign a deal. The Red Devil come back into the league. Mount was Ten Hag's disaster, says Stewie. Paid 55 plus 5 in add-ons to make or the worst, giving him the iconic 7 shirt. I can never get used to seeing Mount. And Stewie, I've got to say this, right? I've got to say this. Erik Ten Hag, I mean, look, I wanted to like him. I wanted to give him that time. But Mason Mount has got to go down as one of the worst signings I think we've ever made. I'd still think Sanchez is probably up there. I think Sancho is up there. I also think now that Mason Mount could potentially be up there as well. And the worst thing for me, and look, as somebody made the point, look, Mason Mount's going to get paid millions of pounds, right? You know, from that perspective, it is what it is. But when we're talking about signings of players, the sad thing is for me with Mason Mount is not an attitude problem. You know, when with a Sanchez, a Sancho, it was an attitude issue. With a Mason Mount, it's not. And I think that for me is when we talk, look, let's take out the millions of pounds. That for me is probably the biggest thing for me is he's not a problem. Like, you know, he's not a problem. The problem is he just can't stay fit. And I agree with you. I think Erik Ten Hag does have a lot to answer for. Should we go for Finn Garan in the summer? Look, I think any possibilities are there, but the realism has to be we don't have money. And even if we get into the Champions League, I don't think we get the money. Paul, I'm not going to read that. Sure is dog S as are you. United, thanks, mate. It is Toxic Sunday. Johnny says that Villa will drop off. They may or may not. Johnny, I don't know. I suspect they will, but never, club is a joke. Thanks, mate. Like and subscribe if you haven't already. Exactly. Thanks, buddy. City all day long. Cool. Luke Shaw has been at the club for 11 years. Luke Shaw always comes alive in contract years or international tournament. We only got 2 good years out of Shaw and 9 of hibernation. And Stewie, mate, I agree with you. I have my views on Luke Shaw, which I'm trying not to put across. Look, I have said this about a Luke Shaw. He is not good enough to play for this club. He was. He's not now. What annoys me about Luke Shaw more than anything else is, as you say, he comes alive. He comes alive when there's a contract. I would have said if as soon as Luke Shaw knows he's not going to get into an England team, I would have said he would probably stop playing. However, he can't because his contract is up next year. And Stewie, if we give Luke Shaw another contract, it will tell you everything that you need to know about this club. Ibrahim says, Jim the Rat needs to go. I do agree with you, my friend. Liam says, good evening all. We will finish 3rd. Johnny, look, mate, I like that. I like the positivity, mate. Who knows? I mean, I said this season I thought we'd finish between 8th and 10th. At the back end of December, I would have said that's where we should have finished. It doesn't matter. This league has been inconsistent this season. I think anything is possible. I do, but as soon as the Premier League is back, we're going to see. Nikki T says Mark was referring to bigger clubs that are in the Champions League. FA Cup is good for the lower teams to potentially get matched up with the big six teams. Exactly. Vaughan says FA Cup is not dead. We have Macclesfield Town. And I love that, Vaughan. I love that Macclesfield Town have got in there as well. I think it's fantastic. Has anyone seen the reports that the Glazers will be remortgaging the land around Old Trafford to front the IPL? But it doesn't, Liam. It doesn't surprise me. It doesn't surprise me. It doesn't surprise me that the Glazers will lump the debt onto the club for IPL. And look, Liam, if that turns out to be true, this fan base needs to. If this turns out to be true, then something needs to happen. We can't sustain another £1 billion of debt. That would be ridiculous. I will look at that, Liam. I will investigate that, and I'll probably do a show on that tomorrow. If the Glazers do remortgage or use, which look, Liam, I would probably say that's true, because if you look at how the Glazers buy stuff, they leverage debt. And what else can they leverage? They can leverage the land around the club because they own it. Now, whether or not that goes against the club, I don't know. But Liam, I will look into that as well. Trophy is a trophy at the end of the day. It's a mark of success. And if we won't win it, we will celebrate that. I will get on to Odegaard as well. FA Cup has magic when a non-league club beats a £1 million club. They've come up short every single time. Do you think England fans will get too sure a chance? I do. Feather says Man City will lift the title. Benito says hi. Bammy says hi. Love the United shirt. Thanks, mate. I do have now quite the collection of shirts, by the way. That one is one of my favourites of all time. Do you think we will be Everton? That is a good question. That is a very, very, very good question. I don't know, mate. I honestly don't know. We are away again. I think it really depends on whether the Toffees are going to play a mid to low block. I shouldn't think they will. If Everton come out and try to attack us, I think we'll get some joy. But I'll go through that. United will be fine, says Richard. Eric was a bald fraud. Sanchez is the worst. Sancho awful, yeah. How long have you been a United fan? I've been a United fan since 1987. I've been a United fan since 1987. Jesus Christ. I'm old. I've been a fan for nearly 40 years. Jesus Christ, I'm old. You look like Kobe Bryant. Oh, mate. Mount was signed off the back of a year being injured, pretty much with a year on his contract, and we still paid 55 for him. Why is there no Ratcliffe out? Go figure, mate. Go and figure. The regression and disappearance of Sancho needs to be studied. The player I saw at Dortmund was on the brink of world class. He was sensational, and as soon as he got 300k a week, and agree with you, mate. Stu, I don't know, mate. I don't know what happened. I don't know, mate. Please get approval for what? I don't mind. Goldbridge Alice gets on my nerves, says Nikki T. Manchester is back, and it's red. New room, says David. No, this is just a temporary room. It's half term, and I've got to stream whenever I can. Alex says KG and Flex for me. I've been watching. What's it called? Lasso, Ted, right? And I think KG is in that, and it's actually quite funny. We have the Rooney brothers at Macclesfield. Monday night, loads of United connections, says Von Gwell. I think Lamens has been a nice guy, good and calm, which makes a back four calm. Let's build better from the back. Goes when we need, also releases the front quickly. What's good, Wally? Arsenal, the best team in the world, mate. If you're an Arsenal fan, mate, I think you're going to think that. Is it true you want pretty? I will come on to that. Let me get through the chat, and then we can go on that because it's fucking fantasy. Hypothetically speaking, if the Glazers sell the club, can the debt not be subtracted from the total cost of the sale, or am I simply be stupid? No, Nikarutsu, you're not. The reason why the Glazers, this is what the Glazers want. What the Glazers want is they want a high price to cover the debt. So, for example, when Jazim was going to buy the club, the Glazers wanted 6 billion, 5.5, but they also wanted Jazim to pay the debt off as well. So what they want is they want the full whack of money, and they're not prepared to pay off the debt, or the money that they receive has to pay off the debt. So the Glazers are never going to pay off the debt. If the Glazers want £5 billion, someone's going to have to pay 6 because they're not prepared to pay off the debt. They're not. STJ says, good evening, folks. No spamming in the chat. Exactly. Finally, a man that knows his footy. Thanks, buddy. Can get the jersey that you are. Rio can get the jersey that you're wearing now. I don't get it, mate. Rio can get the jersey that you're wearing now, please. I don't know, mate. I don't know, buddy. Good evening, Geezer. Dennis, the legend. I pray that Carrick does well enough to convince those plunkers to give him a job. He seems to know what is wrong. By the way, he has restored Brunner to his most effective spot. The Glazers out. I do agree with you, buddy. Mwala says hi. Sorry if I've destroyed your name, my friend. Connecting from Zambia. Thanks, mate. A fan since 1976, says Vaughan. Mate, you beat me, buddy. Sully says it's never the case. If proof of funds, they were looking for investment, a similar-minded partner. Exactly. So look, let's get on to... So, the Odegaard story. Look, this... I don't know. I don't know where people get this shit from. Look, whether this is true or not, so many outlets. I'm from Ethiopia. So there are reports out there tonight that United are talking to an Odegaard's agents. Right, he is looking apparently for a switch. He wants to come to the club because he's fallen out with Arsenal. He doesn't want to play there anymore, and he has, he just doesn't want to play. On two levels for me. Number one, no, thank you. No, thank you. I just don't. And number two, it's fucking fantasy. I don't understand. And look, is this the sort of deal that the Glazers would do, and INEOS would do? I fucking hope not. And again, I am going to go through some of his stats, and he is injury prone. He would be at 20. What is he? He's 28. So he's 27. He'll be 28 next season. I mean, I just he's not for me. I just think there are so many reasons for me. Number one, we've been burnt by them before. Sanchez. I don't want. This is the problem that I've got. I don't want big teams, big players that they're willing to let go. So, an Odegaard, I think he signed a contract not too long ago. His contract ends in 2028. He's going to be very, very expensive. He's actually quite injury prone as well. So if you actually look at injuries wise, so he's had 3 injuries already this season. He's missed 13 games. 3 injuries last season, 15 games he missed. He's been okay for the last season. So 25, 6, 24, 25. He's missed a total of about 40 games. 1 injury, 23, 24. He was okay. But one of the concerning things for me, he was injured for 85 days. I think it was 105 in 2021, and he was out for 20 games. And he's had 4 separate injuries to his knee. I think this would have disaster written all over it. Now, I'm not even entertaining it. I'm calling bullshit already. If this happens, I absolutely despair. Now, look, I'm calling this bullshit. It just doesn't make sense to me. It just doesn't make sense to me, Sully. It just doesn't make sense to me, guys. Like, if you were getting the Odegaard from Madrid, fine. I get that. I don't want now a 27-year-old Odegaard who is starting to be injury prone. And obviously the reason for that is because he's playing 60 games a season. He had a really bad injury to his knee when he was 21, 22. And are we going to start accumulating these players again? Are we going to be stupid? I think he would be Mason Mount part 2. I do. I think he would be a Mason Mount. Maybe not to that degree, but you're going to have to pay some massive money. So for me, it's a big flat out no. Also as well, look, if you go through the funds and you go through the money, right? How are we going to buy a player who, and I think for me, he is more of a you could argue you could say that he's an 8. I think he's more of an attacking. I think he's more of a Bruno Fernandes type of player. Maybe he's a little bit further back. I would rather keep Bruno Fernandes than pay 75 million pounds for an Arsenal player who, in my view, is going to become more injury prone. He's been injured already 3 times this season. I think it's a disaster. I also think it's a load of bollocks. Look, if somebody was to say to me, would you sign him for 35 million, then maybe that's a conversation. But Sully, you're right. Bruno Fernandes, he's a very mercurial player, very, very frustrating player. But Odegaard is not as good. I would rather give Fernandes another contract. I really would. And I am not his biggest fan. But Bruno Fernandes, his numbers are ridiculous. And I would rather give him the £75 million rather than give it to an Arsenal to strengthen Arsenal. Now, we are supposed to be chasing down these top 3 teams, but yet would we be funding an Arsenal to go and buy players? It would be typical of us to go and do that deal and fund an Arsenal and fund them for the next rebuild. We would probably give them that money. The Mason Mount cash that we gave to Chelsea, they went and bought Cole Palmer. So, and this is the level of incompetence. So for me, 100% no. And also, as well, we need a DM. We need to stop talking about these attacking players. We need a winger. We need CDM. We need another centre midfielder. We need a left back, a right back, a left winger, or just a winger. Why are we being linked? I don't understand. I do, because people are bored, right? People are bored. But it just doesn't make sense. When you use your brain, it just doesn't make sense. Why would we fund? And to bear this in mind, our funds are going to be limited this summer. Why would you go and spend a big chunk of money? Bruno Fernandes is there. I would rather convince him to stay for another 2 seasons or 3 seasons rather than this player. So it just doesn't make sense to me. So let me see what you guys are saying in the chat. Whoever makes these up makes no sense. I do agree with you. So Dennis says pig shit. I agree with you completely on that one. It's every player and his dog. It's every player and his dog time again. The merry-go-round in full swing. Not even worth discussing. Not better than Bruno. I'd rather we chased the French left back at Leipzig for 50. No, agreed. Vaughan says Hans Vaken Club Bruges would be a great signing. Veman as well. Yeah. Rodgers for me, again, I would 100% go for that player. I like him a lot. Bruno is a chaos merchant. I mean, look, I agree with you. Bruno Fernandes is a very, very frustrating player. He is so frustrating to me. He is. STJ says, yeah, funding our competitors. Exactly. Put Bruno up against a low block and he's clueless. And look, you guys know how I feel about him. Fernandes, for me, is not a captain. I don't rate him as a captain. If there was an opportunity to sell him for £100 million, would I do it next season? Yes, I would. But if not, I wouldn't do it. I don't rate him as a captain. I would take the captaincy away from him. But the problem is, and one of my main reasons why I would sell him is basically because he's not a captain, and the only way you're going to take the captaincy away is to sell him. If he was like another squad player, fine. But eventually we are gonna have to replace him. But there is no doubt that he does things on the pitch that other people can't. There is no doubt that he's probably still our best player. But I do agree with you. He is not a captain. And I would have that argument with anybody. Nicky T says, I think Hackney's getting wasted. He needs to play in the Premier League. Manu could be a captain of the future, may make his game. Unlucky, look, I don't disagree with that. Manu is not a captain at present. He's not. STJ says, realistically, we are going to have funds for maybe 2 quality younger signings, a left back, and hopefully a central defensive midfielder. I don't know, mate. I really don't know. If right now, if you were to ask me how much I think we've got to spend in the summer, I think right now we've got 100 million. Even if we had 300, we're going to lose an additional 120 to 150 million pounds. Whatever we get, we're going to have to sell to buy. So if not Bruno, then who? Says Emmanuel, look, we need Bruno Fernandes is probably not an issue for now, right? But there are certain players that you can't replace at clubs. Now, I'm not going to make this the Fernandes show. We do have a tiny squad, but we need to succession plan for Bruno Fernandes because he may go. But let's see. Let's have a little look at what we're saying. Fresh says Shaw and Casemiro, world class. Casemiro should stay another year. We're going to massively struggle without him. It's a difficult one for me. Would I keep Casemiro for another year? The reason why we haven't is because we have to trigger Casemiro's extra year. And if we get into the Champions League, there's a 25% increase. So, Fresh, would you pay another year of Casemiro at 300k, and then would you give him 25% on top of that as well? So Casemiro would be pushing 400k. So would you keep Casemiro for an extra year at 400k? And that pretty much is the question. Is Casemiro, if you had to give Casemiro another year and we got to the Champions League, it's a 25% increase in their wages. Casemiro would probably be on around 400k, so 20. Yeah, so what's that? 60, 30. Yeah, he'd be on 390,000. We are just looking at box-to-box players that can defend a bit. 100 million spend is nowhere near. 100 million was my guess after that. Sell. I do agree. We do have a tiny squad. I do agree. We need £500 million. Thoughts on academy players being brought through? I think we need to. Look, next season, right? If we've got the Champions League and the league, we're not going to buy 6-7 players next season. We're not, unless a miracle happens next season. We're not going to buy 6 or 7 players. We 100% need to start bringing in these young kids, because otherwise, what is the point? I am not the biggest fan because I don't think that we've got the squad to give protection to these young players. But at the same time, I don't think that we've got a choice. So I think that we need to. Talk about, no, I don't need to. There's nothing to talk about. I'm happy to let Casemiro go. He's only going to decline at this point. Exactly. That is the numbers, and we cannot afford it. Yes, I'd pay. We need to ease someone in slowly, not to get a sudden replacement. Casemiro can be eased out next year with a replacement coming in. Doesn't really matter as he's decided to leave. I do agree with Nicky. We should have. How are we going to play twice a week next season? I think Casemiro going will make room for Anderson and others. Look, it's true. It is true. But Anderson, mate, he's not coming. What players do you think United will look at in the summer? I think Belabor. I think he's going to be the one that comes in. It terrifies me. My opinion has changed on him as well. By the way, I think we need to go. I think we need to be clever. I think we need to go and buy a world, maybe not a world class, but we need to go and get that midfielder who is going to be, that linchpin. I think we need to be smart. I think we need to go to the German league. I think we need to go to the Belgian league. I think our signings are going to be very limited next season. I think we're going to have the majority of the same squad. I think we'll go and get a winger. I think that we will go and get a centre midfielder. I think we need two. I don't think this summer is going to be the sort of summer that people think is going to be. I think Belabor comes in. At this point, I'm not the biggest fan. I think he does come in. But it is crazy. Adam says, I like Sander Berge. I like Sander Berge. See, I think Sander Berge is a player that would fit into the squad. Are we going to win a league with Sander Berge as a starter? No. Could we win it with him as a squad player? Yeah. United should maintain his wages and keep him for a year, since United haven't got a replacement for Casemiro. I'm going to say something now that maybe people won't like. Casemiro has had a good season, right? Casemiro hasn't been. If you brought in an Anderson now, you bring in a Tonali, you bring in a good centre midfielder. By comparison, Casemiro is not going to look good. The reason why Casemiro looks good is because everybody else is shit. I'm not taking away that Casemiro has been a great player this season, but Casemiro is not getting into a Man City and Arsenal. He's not going to do it. Look, Casemiro is not the answer. Keeping Casemiro for a year, and look, I will fully. So I'm so glad that Casemiro has had a fantastic year. I'm so happy. He's not going to do it next year. He's not going to do it next year. He's not going to do it next year. He's just not going to do it. I'd love Tonali. Yeah, I do agree with you. Do you think they'll sell Ugarte this summer? No, I don't, Nicky, because they can't take a book loss. When we're talking about selling players, we've got to look at the book value of a player. United cannot afford to make a loss. If they were to, so Ugarte's got a contract to 2028. If we were to sell him for anything less than, I think it's 38 million, 35 million, then we make a loss. We can't do that. So we're not going. I don't think that we're going to sell him. It's a terrible thing to say, but we need to buy. Looking for potential, we are ways off lobbing £200 million on two players. I agree with you. What Premier League players would you look at for United this summer, mate? I like Tonali. I do. I think he'll be very, very expensive. I like Onana as well. I think he'll be expensive. I like Ampadu as well, actually. I do like an Ampadu. I like, is it Lewis Hall? There are some talented players out there. Yeah. Don't want. I know Odegaard says Brad. Rio, I mean, if you can let him have the jerseys you're wearing. Rio, sorry, I mean, if you can let me have the jersey you're wearing. No. No. Ugarte has been looked at by Fenerbahce. I'd love him. We should sign him when Newcastle were interested. Exactly. Keeping Casemiro's stupidity and regression. His wages are too high and he has too many deficiencies. Getting no show guard would be ridiculous because he doesn't even do anything in the big games. Agree with you, Brad. I agree with you. No more Ananas. My PTSD won't cope. I don't mind Tonali, but where is the 6? I don't understand. And Baleba is no. Murillo at centre back. I do agree. What manager you think that we'll go for in the summer? I think it's obvious. Enrique has said no. Ancelotti's said no. Nagelsmann has said no. Tuchel has said no. One of the things we're going to have to factor in is Sir Jim's comments. I think have absolutely screwed us over. I think that Carrick is going to be the manager. That's a conversation for a different night. But I think Carragher is going to be the manager. Look, as I say before, that's a conversation for a different night. I don't think that United. I think the levels that we're going to look at is I think we're going to look at a Glasner, which I don't want a Glasner, and a Roller, a De Zerbi. We're not going to get a best-in-class coach. We're not, unless INEOS can pull something out of the bag, which they haven't yet. I think we're going to have a very somewhat of austerity. I think we're going to have much of the same. I don't think Carrick is ready, and neither do I. Look, if you're going to ask me now, do I think Carrick is the right guy? And my answer to that is no. I think we need a coach who's been there, who is fought for. Look, this is United. We are supposed to be best in class. We're supposed to be the biggest club or one of the biggest clubs, right? I don't want a fucking work experience manager. I don't. I want best in class. So Carrick for me is not best in class. It doesn't mean he can't be. For me, I want a manager who's been there and won it all. I think we look at Marco Silva. I don't think it is Jim's comment because of past history of sacking managers and Amorim not backed top and running a mile. Ratcliffe's comments have been a literal ice bucket on any top manager coming to United. Newton's law of unintended consequences. I don't think people realise or appreciate the damage that has done. I said to you before, look, I do get bits and pieces from people and what I was told. What one of the things that I've been told is that internally it's a fucking disaster. What Sir Jim has said has riled so many people, has riled players. This is something that this squad, this squad is on a it needs to be balanced. Any little movement will sway this squad to either being good or bad. Sir Jim's comments has pissed so many people off that it is a fine line with this team between losing and whether or not they win, because these players are emotional players. They are an attitude players. So we're going to see. So look, guys, I am going to go. Fantastic show, guys. Look, we're going to have David is in the house. David, I hope you're doing extremely well, my friend. So look, David has come in at the end. Thanks, buddy, and I'm glad you're in the house. But look, I will be back tomorrow. No doubt tomorrow there'll be more shit out there. Sully's right. Why would a top coach want to come to this club? Because the drama. There's no budget. There's drama. Why would any sane person want to come to the club? No, I'm really uncomfortable. I'm sitting in a chair and it's really uncomfortable. It is so uncomfortable sitting in this chair. It is ridiculous. Always have the best kits, JB. Thanks, buddy. Yeah, Gerard, you're gone, mate. You're gone. Weed people are gone. So look, guys, I will be back tomorrow. Look, thank you so much for being part of the channels. You guys are legends. Amazing stuff, guys. You guys are legends of the channel. You make this channel fantastic, and this channel doesn't exist without you guys. So thank you. I will be back tomorrow as normal, I think. If anything does break, of course, I will be back on. I don't think it will. But look, guys, take care. Have a good rest of your morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you are. I'm JB. This is the United Devil channel, and I will see you on the next one. Take care.